the presidential working report found a lot of weaknesses after visiting the whole of the country. And the major weakness or challenge that they saw in the area of delivery of VCE is that there was weak pre-primary education. And that is what I saw in the presidential working report. And so from the PAPA report, there were several recommendations that there should be tracking of data so that it informs policy. And on this area, we are working with the COG together. And last year, we had an opportunity, COG being led by Director Kizito. We were able to convene at Nakuru and come up with a module for collecting data for on ECE generally, not only on learners, but on ECE generally. And we are planning to do a pilot in Turkana in the first week of September.
Matters concerning children are scattered in terms of intervention by government. There are matters regarding children that are hosted in the Ministry of Health, matters regarding children that are hosted in the State Department responsible for children's services, matters regarding children that are hosted in the State Department for Agriculture, because food basically and food security is basically agriculture. Matters of children that are hosted in the State Department for Education, matters of children that are hosted, so you can mention a name. And therefore that in itself creates some gap with regard to intervening on matters children, even before we speak to foundational learning. And the bigger gap is that the Children Act does not also provide that clarity. It just provides clarity on the rights, but does not provide clarity on how the county government then what the county government is supposed to do, and how the county government is supposed to interact with the other level of government with regard to responsibility over matters of children. So that gap has made us realize that a child can be born, reach 7 years, they have not attended pre-primary, they want to go to grade 1. They reach grade 6 or grade 8 in the former system, and they don't have a birth certificate. They reach grade 7 or they go to an ECD and they have not finished being immunized. So it is more complex than just focusing on one state department.
But perhaps what we needed to ask ourselves is whether we needed to concentrate on data to action. Actually, the real issue here is from paper to data to action. And the reason why I'm saying this is because, number one, if you don't have the right underpinnings, chances are that you will not get the right interventions. If you look at the discussions that we've held today, and when you were looking at other legal frameworks and policy frameworks that exist in the country, you realize that we have several frameworks that address issues of education, but without really addressing them coherently. Now, we are talking about guidelines here. And as a lawyer, I would tell you that guidelines do not exist without foundational documents. Guidelines are usually administrative documents. They must be anchored either in a policy or a legal framework. And that is why we need to ask ourselves, do we have the right legal and policy frameworks to support this? And that is why I'm saying that we need to look at paper to data, into action. And for us to be able to have actions, we must be able to understand what are the principles and the guidelines underpinning the issues that you're talking about. And if you look at the problem statement that you presented, Madam Odundo, you realize that one of the issues that was actually left out is a lack of understanding or an appreciation of the foundational learning in this country. If people don't understand the whys, you will not be able to address the whats.
1,000 miles begin with the first step. And the first step, we need to get it right. Now, at Semastea, we believe that the architect of all this is the teacher. And that is why we will be talking about the teacher. And I liked a member in the audience who responded earlier talking about now teachers need to be retooled so that we are getting it right. So Semastea, we look at data-driven evidence in that we need what is it that we can help teachers to help the learners, that the learner at that low level can confidently maybe count correctly 1 up to 10. And that is why we went into error analysis as an approach to pedagogy, approach of how a teacher can instruct those learners confidently so that they gain the learning outcomes we expect. At PP1, they can count confidently from 1 up to 10 without missing.
When you use this approach, then you're able to address the learners' misconceptions very early, because the way we all know is that if learners proceed to primary school with some misconceptions, then those misconceptions might become bigger learning gaps. The other why is that we promote metacognition. That is, the learner is able, once you guide the learner how to identify the errors they are making, the mistakes they are making, and address them, then the learners will be able to reflect back as they undergo through learning to see whether they are doing it right as they have previously done. And the last why, perhaps because of time, the second why is that you enable learners to build resilience. You know, resilience, people think that the social emotional will only come up at the very late, maybe when at grown-up level. But even those learners, when you mark them wrong, to what extent do you affect their social emotions? So when you guide them how to identify, and you don't just tell them they are wrong without guiding them how tomorrow they will overcome, then you enable them to be able to do that.
In each county will be training 400 teachers, 100 teachers of PP1 and PP2, 100 teachers in grade 1, 100 teachers in grade 2, and 100 teachers in grade 4. So we are looking forward to working very closely with you people. These counties were listed because they have some issues with gender issue in enrollment of children.
Counties have a mandate that only them can actualize and make able, because all county governments have a unique understanding of the communities that they come from. They have a unique understanding of the challenges that they face, and they have a unique mandate that has been given to them by the Constitution in regard to early years education. And so a number of barriers still exist to prevent learners with disabilities from maximizing and thriving in education. And I'll just name a few. In some instances, infrastructure is still a very, very difficult issue. Capacity of teachers, and you just heard counties complaining about retooling, confirming that capacity of teachers, not just in delivering in their mandate, but also in providing support for learners with disabilities. The aspect of attitude among communities, amongst children, and among regions is still an issue. Delayed or misdiagnosed needs of learners with disabilities is still quite an issue in many of our counties. Marginalization, which comes with the stigma, still a very big issue among many of our counties. And of course, shortage of learning materials, as has already been identified.
There's a gap between the policy and the practice. How do we bridge it? I believe one of the ways we bridge it is having some of these forums where we break out of our silos and all come together around a child and give our thoughts and views. For EdTech Hub, we have a stake because when the program was begun 6 years ago, it's an 8-year fund. Kenya got the majority of the funds to do research. So we've done about 7 studies. IDU was one of the first people we did study with. And in fact, we've done maybe more than 5 studies because we really wanted to understand whether personalized digital learning can help us to begin to bridge the gaps in our classrooms. How do you support the learners that need more support using technology? And we've walked a long journey with IDU. I think they can tell you, when they began with that tool that you now use in all of your counties, it was in a language and accent that our children could not understand. True? But research helped us to understand that you need to localize. Another thing is it wasn't an equitable tool. You were giving one tool to a PP1 class of about 100 learners in some cases. What normally happens is if you give a teacher such a tool in such a class without proper understanding of what that tool is for, they will give it to the fastest learners all the time. So you're accelerating the fast learners who already don't need the acceleration, but we're leaving behind the ones that need support.
When National Treasury and Planning is budgeting for education, they're struggling to get figures for ECE to budget. And I think now this is the challenge now we want to throw to the counties. Can we work with you? We've suggested that we'll work with COG and Ministry to pilot this. We were proposing 2 counties where we work, Wajir and Mandera. But because of the commitment I've seen in the room, I don't know how many CECs are here, because I want to say that because of the commitment, we say how many CECs are here? I think most of them have left, but I want to suggest, I'm going to talk to my team, if we can include Busia and Embu, because of the commitment they've shown in that pilot. And probably if we add another one, then we pilot with, we budgeted for 2. We can see, I'll talk to my team to see if we can tweak the budget to do the pilot in 5 counties. Oh, Homa Bay, hey, okay. We have seen you. So, what we'll do, we need to have a meeting with you and Martha to just design how because what I think Ministry is keen is to pilot how data comes from the county to inform national planning and decision making. And I think EdTech, you will see how you can help us leverage on technology when we do that. That's the decision we want to have.